Today, we are talking about credit card debt, and I'm giving you the exact secret sauce that I used to pay off $18,000 in credit card debt. The time that I paid off my credit card debt, I was making about $65,000 a year. It took me about 3 years. So, number one, you have to stop using your credit cards. It is incredibly difficult to pay off your credit cards if you are actively still using them. So, at the time that I decided that I had had enough and I was ready to pay off my credit card, I was using my credit card debt to bridge the gap between what I was making and my lifestyle. In order to stop using my credit cards, I had to really sit down, take a serious look at my expenses, and make some cuts, determine what were needs and what were wants. And by doing that, I was able to get my living expenses down below what I was making so that I was able to stop the credit card float. It is really going to be hard to pay off the credit cards if you are actively using them. The things that I got rid of out of my budget, they didn't go away forever, but they did go away for that time that I was paying off my. Number two, I started tracking my spending. Every single dollar that left my budget, I started keeping track of. And this helped me stick to my spending plan. When I first started tracking my spending, I did it manually on pen and paper. I still track my spending. I do that using an app now. You Need a Budget is my favorite tracking app out there, and I have used them all. And in the beginning, when I first started my journey, not only did I track all of my spending, I became a cash spender. I started using what is known as the cash envelope system. And this is where you pull money out of the bank for all of your variable spending. You categorize what you're going to be spending in envelopes, and then you only spend the cash that's in those envelopes. I would leave my bill money in my checking account because those were auto drafted, but I would pull out all of my variable spending. So groceries, gas, eating out, any spending money, I would pull that out in cash. Pulling it out in cash created a friction point between myself and a lot of the mindless spending that I was doing. I wasn't able to order DoorDash as easily. I would have to go out and get the food, which would cause me to think, do I really need this, or do I want to eat what's already in the refrigerator? When I went to a cash spending system, this was the first time in my entire life where I was able to actually save money. I went from living paycheck to paycheck and not having enough to get me through the next payday to having money left over in each of my budget categories at the end of the month consistently. Going to the cash spending system just helped me stay in track with my budget, which in turn helped me stop using my credit cards or depending on my credit cards to carry me from month to month. And so I highly recommend cash spending if you are somebody who's really struggling with your spending. Number three, when you are in a journey to paying off your credit cards, you have to start making larger payments. Paying the minimum payment every month is not going to work. It is going to take you a long time to pay those credit cards off because the minimum payment is designed for you to pay as much interest as possible to the bank. So as long as you're making that minimum payment, you are going to pay the maximum interest on that loan, and you are going to be paying that card off for a very long time. Now, there are two systems for paying off your credit cards that I recommend. There's the Avalanche method, which is where you prioritize paying off your card based on interest rates. And then there is the Snowball method, which is where you prioritize paying off your cards by balance. And with the Snowball method, you actually start with your smallest balance card first and work your way up to your larger balance card. I personally did the Snowball method, and the reason that I really like the Snowball method is that it creates a psychological win. There is something that happens in your brain. It releases a little dopamine every time you achieve a goal. And so with the Snowball method, if you have a small credit card balance, let's say $500, you are going to be able to pay that off a lot faster than a large credit card, maybe let's say $5,000. So by using the Snowball method, it allows you to get that dopamine hit, achieve that small win, which will keep you motivated on this debt payoff journey. And in order to pay more on my credit cards outside of the minimum, I had to make some cutbacks in my budget. So the first place that I examined where I could make cutbacks was in my subscriptions. It is really easy to stack up a lot of tiny subscriptions and think that it's not that big of a deal. But when you look at those subscriptions holistically, a $5.99 subscription here and a $20 subscription here and a $10 subscription here can add up. And so by really taking a look at my subscriptions and paring those down to the bare minimum, I was able to make an additional $100 payment every single month on my credit card. That $100 was money I was already used to coming out of my budget because I was paying for those subscriptions. Number 6, I negotiated my bills. So this was one of the steps that was probably the most difficult for me, and it took me the longest to do this one because I am not a person who enjoys talking on the phone. The idea of calling the phone company or the electric company stresses me out. One of the first bills that I negotiated was my cell phone bill. So at the time I was using Verizon, and I was able to get like $30 knocked off my bill by just calling them and saying, hey, I see that you have this promotion that you're running for new customers. I have been a long-time customer. Is there anything that you can do to help me get that promotion that you're currently running? And surprisingly, they were able to give it to me. Now, there were some companies that I called, for example, my internet provider, that wasn't able to give me a better deal. In that case, I shopped around and looked for a better deal. Now, eventually, I ended up leaving Verizon and going to AT&T and saving $100 a month on my phone bill by just switching providers. So I highly encourage you to really evaluate your bills, especially those ones that you've had for a long time, because you may not be getting the best price that's available, and there may be competitors out there, or they may be willing to give you. Number 7, I budgeted spending money into my spending plan. I knew that it was going to take me a while to pay off my credit cards. I was a single mom. I was making about $65,000 a year. I live in a high cost of living city. So I knew that it was going to take me a while to pay off this credit card debt. If this process was going to be sustainable for me, I was going to need to give myself some grace. I was going to need to enjoy the process and still live my life. So I budgeted in spending money. Every single paycheck, I would give myself a certain amount of money to spend guilt-free. And that really helped me stay on plan. It helped my budget feel less restrictive. Number 8, I got rid of Amazon. Now, when I say this, I get a lot of pushback from people, but hear me out. I got rid of Amazon. I cut way back on my frivolous spending. Not having Amazon created a friction point between myself and that spending. Number 9 is I found ways to inject more money into my budget and use that money to pay off my debt. So I would look for side gigs. I would sell things around my house that we weren't using on Facebook Marketplace to make a little bit of extra money that I could use towards paying off my debt. Number 10 is I shared my journey with the people around me. Sharing my journey with my friends, family, and the other people in my life helped me be accountable to somebody other than myself. I also joined Facebook groups for people who were working their way out of debt. Having other people know what I was doing and know the journey that I was on allowed me to have some external motivation, gave me an outside support so that I stuck to the journey. And most importantly, I gave myself grace in this process. Most of us didn't end up in debt overnight, and we're probably not going to get out of debt overnight. It is going to be a journey. So give yourself grace. You may make mistakes. You may not achieve your goal as fast as you think that you can, but it's really important that you give yourself grace in that process. I didn't want these 3 years that I was on this process to be miserable. So I also would reward myself. Every $1,000 that I would pay off towards my credit cards, towards my debt, I would allow myself to get a little treat, whether it was a new shirt or a massage or a manicure or something that I had taken out of my budget. I allowed myself to have that treat back in my budget, and that really also helped me stay the course. That's it for today's video. If you found this video helpful, please like and subscribe for more budgeting content. Happy budgeting.